All right, I am up in Raleigh. Got my cutie pie. We had a blast today, and she was out like a light. So I am going to read a little bit. I had a Bojangler for dinner, which was delicious. Bojangler Deluxe. Comes with lettuce, tomato, and tartar sauce and cheese, but I do mine without cheese. Anyways, yummy. And I get to read in peace. No doggies that will interrupt me barking or climbing in my lap or eating wood. All the things. Getting in my face, licking my face all over the place. So I love it, though. I love it. I love my doggies. All right, so we are going to read some of June and Elvis. All right, this is chapter 19 called Bad Publicity. Now, let me just think. Was there something I was going to say about the last chapter that I forgot? I feel like there was something about... I can't remember. Maybe I'll remember another time. But something about Gladys. But anyway. All right, with the anticipation... Oh, they're getting ready to go on their Florida trip. With the anticipation of the trip and the excitement of it finally arriving, getting a good night's sleep was completely out of the question. I had seen Elvis performing live on stage before, but that had been well over a year ago. That's when she first met him. What was it, June of 55? June or July of 55, and now we're in August of 56. Now I was going to be in the middle of it all, watching Elvis do his thing. My mother, leaving for work, had just given me a hug and a kiss goodbye when the phone rang. It was Buddy, trying his hardest to imitate Elvis. Well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Let's go, cat, go. Get your glad rags on and join me, hon. I'm leaving now so we can have some fun. I hung up the phone, dragged my suitcase to the front porch, locked up the house, and began pacing back and forth, too excited to sit still. I could hear Buddy's horn blowing a block away. While Buddy was loading my suitcase, Pat and I were hugging and jumping around in circles. While Elvis always did all of his own driving, Buddy decided to split the driving 3 ways. Unlike the interstate highways today, bypassing all the major cities, highway traveling in 1956 took you through the center of every little city and town. Inching our way across the Florida Panhandle, it seemed to be an endless journey. I decided it would be easier if we didn't look at the long distance to Miami, but take it one town at a time. But they were going through the Panhandle of Florida all the way down to Miami. That's a long ride down. That's like just as long as us going from North Carolina to Orlando. Maybe not quite, but that's what it seems like. It made the time, as well as the miles, seem to go much faster. Before long, Pat's 300-mile shift was over, and it was my turn at the wheel. When my shift was over, I stopped in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, and woke Buddy. It was a relief not to hear any more of his loud snoring. We arrived in Miami early the following day and checked into the first available motel in Miami Beach. So they drove all the way through, taking turns driving. That was a good way to do it. So they arrived in Miami early the following day. We had just enough time to get some sleep before Elvis's first show of the day. I woke up at daylight feeling a little uncomfortable and went to the bathroom. Yuck! I was totally unprepared for what I found. With all the excitement, I'd completely forgotten about my monthly visit from the Red Devil. Oh no! Wake up, Pat, I yelled in desperation. Why, what's the matter? She yelled back. You're not going to believe this. I've started my period and I didn't bring any Kotex, I said on the verge of tears. Back in the day when you wore Kotex with the belt and you would thread through the ends of the Kotex pad. Oh my God. Those sticky things were like the greatest thing in the world, and then they came out with tampons. But this was back in the day when you had to get Kotex. Oh, shit. Why now? I didn't bring any either. What should I do? She said, coming in the bathroom, rubbing her eyes. I can't move, Pat. I'm bleeding like a stuck hog. I've got to have some pads, I said, now crying. Poor. I'll go get the car keys from Buddy and find a store. Here, put this between your legs and go back to bed, she said, throwing me a towel. We didn't have a phone in the room, so she put on her clothes and went next door to Buddy's room. I could hear her knocking lightly and then banging on Buddy's door. The entire motel could probably hear it too. I can't wake him up. I'm going to the office to get a pass key, she said, storming back in the room. I'm so sorry, Pat. I'd go myself, but I can't go anywhere with this towel between my legs. Pat came back in the room a long 5 minutes later. Did you get the car keys? I asked. Hell no. He's got the friggin' chain on the door. I can see him, but he won't wake up. He's passed out cold, stark naked, and I ain't got the first sign of any covers, she said in disgust. Oh my gosh. So she's like, he's got the friggin' chain on the door. I can see him, but he won't wake up. He's passed out cold, stark naked, and ain't got the first sign of any covers. I got out of bed, traded the towel for a washcloth, and went with her to Buddy's room. We yelled at him through the crack in the door, but couldn't get him to budge. Looking around for something to throw, we saw a drinks machine that dispensed orange juice and milk in little cartons. Interesting. Next to the drinks machine was a trash can full of empties. We grabbed a handful and started throwing them through the crack in the door, but the empty cartons were so light they wouldn't reach. We needed something heavier, so we pulled our coins and bought some full cartons. We only had 3, so we had to make every shot count. The crack was so small we could barely get our hands through. We missed the first 2, finally hitting him in the chest with the last carton. He shot straight up in the bed, looked all around the room, and tried to figure out what was going on. Garbage was everywhere. He walked to the door like a zombie, tripping on the sheet he was holding in front of himself, and handed Pat the car keys. You might as well come with me, June. You can help me look for a drugstore, Pat said, now completely awake. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, and everything was closed. Back in the 50s, there was no such thing as a 7-Eleven convenience store. By this time, Pat was really getting aggravated. I was trying to be sincere when I said I was sorry, it was all my fault, but when I looked at her, I had to laugh. She was only 5 feet tall and weighed 87 pounds. The top of her head was at about the same level as the steering wheel of the big Mark II. Oh my gosh, she's smaller than me. 87 pounds, 5 feet tall. She's a teeny little thing. We'd been riding for half an hour and still couldn't find a store. When we stopped for a red light, 2 men pulled up alongside of us. They looked at us and started to laugh. One of them stuck his head out the window and yelled, "Hey, little girl, you better take your daddy's car home." Pat took a deep breath and turned to face the man. "Oh, goodness gracious, Pat." "F you, mister," she yelled. I'm not going to say it. The light turned green, and she floored it. I was laughing my head off. At least she'd had enough Southern upbringing to include the word mister when she was addressing him. Oh, my gosh. We finally found a gas station. Cum store? What does that mean? Found a gas station cum store. Well, it's gas station -cum-store. And I don't know if that's what I think it is, but I don't know. We bought what we needed and went back to the motel for a few hours sleep. So she got her some pads. This is their first day there, their first morning. They just arrived and were trying to go to sleep. We got to the Olympia Theater about 20 minutes after the first show had started. It seemed to take forever for us to find a parking place. Police were surrounding the theater and gave us directions to the stage door. After telling the guard that we were with Elvis, he went inside and came back with Red. Red waved for us to come in, and we watched the opening act from the wings. So I think he has an afternoon show. It's like 3 o'clock. Most of these shows, he had 2 a day and sometimes 3 a day. Now this man, he has a 30-minute, maybe 40-minute show. It's freaking hot as you know what if he's outside. And some of these are outside, but I think most of them are inside. But still, it's hot, humid. There's a lot of sweating going on. And he puts so much into these shows. He's like an athlete, honestly. So you can just imagine how much it drains him. And he has to get psyched up for it. And so all the emotion and the adrenaline and all that just going on through his body. And then he does it 3 times a day. It's just, The size of the crowd was unbelievable. When Elvis made his entrance from the opposite side, he saw me and gave me a wink. So I guess the show had started, but he may have been maybe not like the only act. There were other people, so he had been backstage. So when he came to get on stage, he looked across the stage and saw June on the other side, the wings on the other side. So when Elvis made his entrance from the opposite side, he saw me and gave me a wink. Screaming girls were being held back from the stage by police. I was caught up in the excitement of it all. I knew the effect he had on me, but seeing this many girls go completely wild was a little frightening. 2 security police positioned on either side of the high stage had the impossible task of keeping the frenzied teenagers under control. Blinding flashbulbs, exploding from every angle, were not only capturing the image of Elvis, but the audience reaction as well. Think about that, the blinding flashbulbs. And later on in life, he gets glaucoma, and these blinding flashbulbs still go off, even in the 70s, and it hurts his eyes so much. And he keeps his eyes closed a lot during those latter years of his life when he's on stage because the lights are just too bright. The lights in the stage and then the blinding flashlights going off. They say after the shows that he would have to go back to the room and put cold washcloths on his eyes for like 30 minutes. Pitiful. But right now, it doesn't hurt him that much. So there were blinding flashbulbs exploding from every angle. Were not only capturing the image of Elvis, but the audience reaction as well. Making matters even worse, Elvis would dance his way to the edge of the stage, step over the stage lights, and reach out to the audience. This had the crowd back on their feet, stampeding to the edge of the stage, wanting to touch his hand. Members of the press, witnessing this phenomenon for the first time, were compelled to get this news to the public. Within 24 hours of his arrival in Miami, Elvis had every parent in the state of Florida scratching their heads, wondering what he was all about and what kind of power he had over their youth. It was the beginning of Elvis mania, and seeing was believing. He's about to explode into the atmosphere. Minding my own business, enjoying the show from the wings, I was soon approached by several members of the press. They not only knew my name, they also knew where I was from and that I was in Florida with Elvis. Elvis was on stage and out of reach, so they were following me. Everywhere I turned, someone was asking me questions. They couldn't get a good story out of me, so some genius of a reporter decided to telephone my mother. Finding the phone number was easy. Only 2 Juanicos were listed in the directory. In retrospect, I realized I should have told my mother never, under any circumstances, talk to the press, but I had no idea anything like this would ever happen. The media in New Orleans had already caused a stink earlier that summer with the erroneous report of our engagement that had put Elvis in a panic. We had managed to squelch that rumor before it reached Colonel Parker's ears, but this time we weren't so lucky. Elvis and I were then completely in the dark about the front page story in the Miami Herald that followed, only to learn later that it was my mother who had spilled the beans. Fans quickly discovered Elvis was driving the Lavender Lincoln Premier, and with anything that would make a mark, they had autographed the car from top to bottom. Daggum, that beautiful lavender Lincoln. They also formed a constant vigil around the car, making it impossible for Elvis to drive, forcing him to hire a limousine service to take him to and from his performances. I mean, this is what I'm telling you guys. This is too much. Too much. I mean, he liked being Elvis, but, I mean, the poor guy, he can't even get to his car. So he learns a lot from this tour that will dictate how he handles the press and shows, concerts. You know, while they run him right into those cars, right off the stage and into the car's backed into the arena. We saw it in Epic. They just back it right up. They drive him right up to it, and he goes right inside into the hotel, and into the arena, then on the stage, and then they run him into those things. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's just, the guy can't keep a car without people marking all over it. It's terrible. But he had to hire a limousine service to take him to and from his performances. He had a death grip on my hand as we ran the short distance from the stage door to the waiting limo after the show. The death grip on her hand. Crowds had pushed their way past the barricades, and police were having a hard time holding them back. 3 motorcycle cops were escorting us back to Elvis's hotel. 3 motorcycle cops in the limo. We were going so fast, one of the cops couldn't make the curve. He lost control of his bike and spun out, hitting a fence. Elvis yelled for the limo driver to stop, but we kept on going. As soon as we got to the hotel room, Elvis collapsed on the sofa with his head in my lap. Emotionally drained, but still wired from his afternoon show, I was running my fingers through his hair, trying to calm him down. He was anxious to find out about the motorcycle cop, but no one could find out anything. Meanwhile, Arthur Hooton, one of the boys, had rear-ended someone in Elvis's Lincoln, the Lavender Lincoln. He rear-ended someone and was being held in the Miami jail. Oh, my gosh. Oh, that's what you get for having a bunch of, well, they weren't teenagers, but they were all roughly 20, 21. Oh, my gosh. In that chaos, he rear-ended somebody. They were all just learning. Red was off somewhere, trying to see how many girls he could make out with, as usual, and Junior was drinking again. I felt so sorry for Elvis that day. He was trying to be granddaddy to us all, trying to manage all those people. So that stress. Arthur's car crash later cost Elvis $5,000 in an out-of-court settlement. $5,000 was a lot of money back then. I don't know how much it would be in today's, but. So his first concert, June gets her period. And Elvis has no clue about that right now. And then his lavender car gets written all over. Arthur Hooten tries to drive it back because Elvis had to end up renting a limo. So one of the cops spins out and hits a fence. Red's off somewhere. He's supposed to be guarding Elvis, but he's off somewhere trying to see how many girls he can get. And what was the last one? Junior. That guy, the one I was telling you about, pitiful looking Junior. Where's that picture of them at the pool with his mama? Oh my God, Junior, bless his heart. He's pitiful. Let's go look back one more. I think it's this page. Bless. He's drinking. There's Red. There's Junior. Elvis with his, just imagine him with his arms crossed across his chest and his legs spread about 2 feet apart or 1.5 feet apart. And that's Arthur Hooten, the guy that wrecked the car. Oh, God. What? I tell you, they're some southern boys, Mississippi. Oh, and Elvis is emotionally drained and still wired. And she's trying to help him relax. Oh, gosh. Elvis was finally beginning to relax when someone knocked at the door. He shouted for Gene. Gene's his other cousin. Gene is Junior's brother. Gene doesn't look much better than Junior, bless his heart, but he does look better. He does look a lot better, but not much. He shouted for Gene in another room to see who it was. Before Gene could get to the door, in stormed the Colonel. He had a folded newspaper in his hand, and his eyes darted from me to Elvis. Elvis jumped up from the sofa and went to his side. And now the Colonel, so Elvis was going to try to hide June so the Colonel wouldn't know he was down there. Remember, he said, if I can figure out how I can hide you from the Colonel. So he thought he could manage the Colonel. And now the Colonel walks in on him with him laying with his head in June's lap. And let's see what's on this newspaper. Elvis jumped up from the sofa and went to his side. Son, we can't have this kind of publicity, the Colonel said in a loud voice, slapping the paper with the back of his hand. You can just see him holding the paper and then just kind of slapping it. We can't have this kind of publicity. What is it, Colonel? Elvis asked, confused. Read it yourself, son, and make damn sure you do something about it, the Colonel ordered, giving me a look and slamming the door on his way out. I can't talk like the Colonel because he's an illegal alien from like Norway or somewhere over there, the Scandinavian. So he's got an accent. But Elvis never knew this. But he came over illegally, so he didn't have a passport. So there you go. He could travel out of the country, but he wouldn't be able to get into America. So that probably was one of the reasons why he never had the international tour. But I know the other thing was, yes, the Colonel was concerned about all the drugs that Elvis would be carrying because he carried, like I said once before, basically they carried a pharmacy with him so he could treat everybody. And the doctor prescribed everything in Elvis's name because Elvis was his patient. But he had all kinds of prescriptions for, if anybody got sick along the way or got hurt, needed, steroid shots, anything like that, to help with pain, steroid pills, all that kind of stuff, painkillers. So, yeah, he was nervous about that. And he said he couldn't provide security. In that Elvis movie, security, they joke around, Elvis is like copying the Colonel going, security. But anyway, so we're way off track. So anyway, the Colonel comes in with the newspaper, and Elvis is laying down on the couch with his head in June's lap, and she's rubbing his head, and the Colonel walks right on in there and says, looks at June and then Elvis, and Elvis jumps up. Son, we can't have this kind of publicity, the colonel said, slapping the paper with the back of his hand. What is it, Colonel? Elvis asked. This was in the very beginning when he really respected the colonel, and everything he said he believed, and he would do whatever the colonel asked, he would do it, because the colonel was making some big promises. Read it yourself, son, and make damn sure you do something about it, the colonel ordered, giving me a look and slamming the door on his way out. What was that all about? I asked. I don't know, baby. Let's find out, Elvis said, sitting next to me and opening the newspaper. My mother, trying to protect my honor, had told the news reporter everything she knew about my relationship with Elvis, as well as our future plans. That afternoon, I saw a side of Elvis I never knew existed. He was realizing he had very little control over his life. The colonel was on his back because of me being with him in Miami. He was getting bad press and being called vulgar. And he blamed me for not telling my mother to keep quiet. Everything was getting to him all at once. He started pacing the floor and taking his anger out on me. Poor Elvis. If only your mother hadn't talked to that damn reporter. Call your mother, June. Tell her never to talk to anyone else. He was yelling at me, but looking out the window. So it was more of a yell instead of a plead. If only your mother hadn't talked to that damn reporter. Call your mother, June. Tell her never to talk to anyone else. I went to the phone and made a collect call to my mother, but she wasn't home. I promised I'd call the next day. He finally calmed down, sat next to me on the sofa, and wrapped both arms around me. I'm sorry for yelling, baby. You know how much I love you, but we can't let the whole world know, okay? In a few years, it'll all be different, I promise. I'll be in control of my life, do what I want to do, and not have to worry about anything but you and me, he said, kissing his index finger and touching my lips. Aw, that's very sweet. I don't know this tune, but he sings a little song to her. We'll build a little nest somewhere out in the west and let the rest of the world go by, he sang softly. Then, picking up the newspaper again, he smiled at the headlines. Elvis is in town, Wiggles and all. The Olympia Theater was filled to capacity yesterday when rock and roller Elvis Presley came to town. That was the beginning of the article. I got my mother on the phone later that night, and we had a nice long talk. I told her about the trouble Elvis had had with his manager because of the newspaper story. The reporter was making it sound like there was something wrong with me letting you go all the way to Florida with Elvis. He was doing most of the talking, trying to put words in my mouth. I promise I'll never say another word. From now on, it'll just be no comment. Tell Elvis I'm sorry and I love him. I love you too, she said, instead of goodbye, as she always did when she hung up the phone. So instead of saying goodbye, she said, tell Elvis I'm sorry and I love him and I love you too. Oh. I tell you, this trip is the beginning of a lot of crazy stuff that happens. People would say Elvis the pelvis and all this kind of stuff. But during this trip, a lot of the slanderous talking about him being vulgar on stage and leading the teenagers into hell and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it was a new thing that was going on with the teenagers because he was breaking the barriers, and it was music that teenagers liked. It was no longer the big bands and the crooners, the Frank Sinatras, the Dean Martins, the Bing Crosby's, the big bands of the 40s and early 50s. So it was music that kind of migrated from blues that the black people sang, that Elvis heard, and it influenced him. So he had that bluesy kind of sound that he would do when he sang. And it was just natural coming out of him, but it drove the teenagers crazy. And so, the people were like thinking he was crossing a racial barrier in a way. And the parents didn't like their white kids listening to that kind of stuff, and it was sexual, and the way he moved on stage. But he wasn't trying to be that way. He was entertaining. He had learned through the 54, half of 54 and 1955 and half of 1956, he'd learned a lot about entertaining and going on stage. And he would say, if I don't give them a show, they won't come back next time. They'll just buy my record. But if he's touring, he wants them to come to see him. And so he thought, if he doesn't give a show, so the man learns how to entertain. And he knew what he did on stage made them scream. And so he would do more and more of it. So as he said in the Epic movie, that it brought the ham out of him. So he was a ham on stage. And he was out of his comfort zone. He always gets nervous, but he was an entertainer at heart. That's the way God made him. So even though he was much more calm at home and soft-spoken, loved to play and have a good time, and was somewhat of the leader of the group, he was deep down had more of a shyer personality, and never ever got over stage fright and getting nervous before a show, and seeing all those girls act that way. He may talk about DeJune here, I'm not sure, but he would say that sometimes it was very scary. But of course he wouldn't let that be known, that it was fearful, that he was scared. But y'all are going to hear some things that happen on this tour. So I'm just giving you the heads up. We're on day 1. Well, he said the day before. That said, Elvis Presley, the Olympia Theater was filled to capacity yesterday when rock and roller Elvis Presley came to town. So I guess that was day 1. And so it says yesterday. So I guess now we're on day 2 when they're reading the paper, because it came out the next day. And the good old Colonel saw it. So that's all we're going to do is this one chapter. It's not that long, but I definitely did some elaborating on it. And so he's in Miami. And, I know what I was going to do. I was going to, somewhere in here, what was it? 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Let's go, cat, go. Get your blue suede shoe. 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go. Don't you? Let's see. I was going to get a picture of June's house. That's one thing I want to do, so you can see what it looks like, the outside porch. And I wanted to go to, there is a picture somewhere that I have seen, and I'll try to find it, that has Pat in it. So I'm going to try to get a picture of Pat. And there's also some pictures of Elvis taken during this tour. And there was one where you could see June in the wings. So maybe I can find that. And let's see. Maybe I can find that front page story in the Miami Herald. I might be able to find that. His death grip. But yeah, think about all these poor little guys. I mean, poor guy with all of his family, the guys that are with him, are just, and he's responsible for them. So he learns a lot of lessons during this tour. And oh, okay, right here. So this is the first time that she has seen Elvis's anger. And I don't know what his anger was like when he was a younger kid, teenager, and like stuff like that, if he get mad at his mom or whatever. Or if this is the way he was. But I think as time goes by, the stresses of his job and trying to keep everyone under control and managed and making the money because he needs to take care of everybody and I think that his every now and then, because he will say himself that he has a terrible temper. He will say that himself, and everybody I've talked to, all the people that, especially Linda's book, Anita's book, Ginger's book, Priscilla talks about it, that he would explode, but it was quick. It was over. When he exploded, it all came out, and then it was over. And for the most part, if you were out and about with everybody, he would never apologize, but he would buy people stuff, and everything's good after that. But like right here, he is in a room all by himself with June, and he tells her, wraps both arms around her. I'm sorry for yelling, and he apologized for it. You know how much I love you, but we can't let the whole world know, okay? In a few years, 3 years is what he thinks, it'll all be different. He thinks he'll be in control of his life, be able to do what he wants to do, and not have to worry about anything. He kissed his index finger and touched her lips. Isn't that sweet? All right. That doesn't happen, does it? Nope. The 3 years turns into the rest of his life. Okay. So I'll try to find some of those pictures and put in the text string. All right, you guys. I hope y'all enjoyed this. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. But it's exciting. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good night. Bye.